There are some times when life just throws a boulder on us.
Finding out that you're moving out of the country is a little overwhelming.
I lost my family when I first started here. And if not for Mark and Brian creating this company, I would not have grown.
All right, I need a minute.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need a minute too, actually.
You're going to make Jeff say something after that.
I love it. Hey, I'm Brian Roland. My brother Mark and I are the social entrepreneurs behind Abenity. We founded our company over a decade ago with a fully distributed team, long before it was cool. We're often asked how we managed to build a healthy remote culture while balancing our personal and our work lives. We're going to talk about this today with key members of our team. Let's get to it. Mark, you and I founded Abenity over a decade ago. It's crazy. And just out of necessity, we started a remote team because you're in California and I was in Nashville. What do you think has really brought us together, taken us from just having a healthy culture, but really to forming a community at work?
Great question. There's all these stories about how the team came together, and they're really built off relationships. So it's one person knowing another person and having those strong bonds already in place. Obviously, as brothers, we already had great communication or experience with each other. Over the years, the team's grown. And as it grew, we got more and more intentional, I think. But as the team grew, as we compartmentalized more or departmentalized with different working groups, and we knew less and less, we set up those times to be more intentional and carve out time to have those meetings to communicate with one another as necessary. And we worked over time to find that rhythm. Sometimes we waited too long to touch base and we could feel that stress there. And then sometimes it'd be too much and we felt like, we couldn't get done the things that we wanted to get done because we were in those meetings. There's definitely the iterative process of just honing it, finding the rhythm that works for you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Everybody's going to have different needs with different business cycles and everything.
Yeah, it's been fun. And it's been really, really unique to watch that transition from kind of those early days. And it's been quite the transition. I'm really proud of those of you that have held on tightly through the acceleration and some of the changes that we have to make along the way. And that's neat. Travis, you've led several companies in the past. You're the CEO of Abenity. I'd love for you just to break down what it is that you think makes our remote team approach work.
Yeah. Well, I think you have an automatic advantage with a remote team or a distributed team, because I think when you're in a traditional office, you automatically have your life is a bit more compartmentalized. You're leaving your home, you're leaving your personal life to go to a corporate environment. When you're also a distributed team, you're in your home, you're in your personal life. And so I think organically you get to know people better. I think you see what's really going on in their personal life. And it opens up those discussions. I think it opens up that community. And I think some of the things that people struggle with when they think about remote work and culture, especially from a leadership position, is communication, trust, accountability, all of those different things that I think when you have stronger relationships, automatically create a good foundation for those. So, and we've had multiple team members have similar experiences. And I think as you go through those things together and you build that trust, especially on the communication front, it helps you to communicate better. Obviously, written communication, we use Slack from an execution standpoint. It's a main platform. And so anytime you're communicating through text, there's a lot of ambiguity. You don't have body language. You don't have things to help read between the lines. And so I think as team members build trust, build community, it helps give people the benefit of the doubt. It helps in those types of communication settings to know that, hey, this person actually really cares about me. They know what's going on in my life, and it helps actually in the workplace as well.
I think that's one thing that people will really discover is when you allow yourself to adopt this remote workplace, that you end up just having more authentic relationships with people. You're talking to people in their comfort zone. You're like, Ben, why the heck do you have a bicycle 10 feet in the air on your wall? And he's like, oh, I love to ride. You could work next to somebody in an office for a decade and never learn stuff about people that comes out when you have this intentional rhythm of relationships. Amy, you are one of my favorite remote team stories. Your husband was stationed in Cuba at Guantanamo Bay, and you have a full-time job with Abenity. Walk us through what's going through your mind when you get the assignment.
Obviously, finding out that you're moving out of the country is a little overwhelming, whether you're kind of prepared for that being a military spouse or not. Being worried about, how is this going to affect my job and my career, and in the future, having, known that we were going to be there for a little over 2 years. Of course, that was a major concern. And then on top of that, just the logistics of, am I physically going to be able to work there? We weren't sure what the internet situation was. Wireless internet had only been installed there a few months prior to us arriving. I really recall being really transparent with them and, feeling like I was supported in that and not being left out to dry, or that there was any question that we're going to find a way to make that work. That transition became so much easier just having that trust. And once the logistics were handled, honestly, it was like I was never in another country. So to me, having that as a military spouse and not having the fear around changing my job every time we move every 2 years is just so incredibly important to me. And the support that brings to our family is really huge.
That was awesome. Bevan, I'm going to jump to you. What's your experience in a fully remote environment?
Well, it's been surprising and great. So I did come from the fully in office thing, and our structure was actually, we didn't even have like our own offices or cubicles because we needed each other so much that we literally just had like desk after desk after desk in one big open room. And there was just like a ton of us. And literally like our culture was just like, if you needed something, you either rolled your chair or you just like shouted to the person that you needed. So it was so fast paced, and it was just constant, like they literally like didn't want us to be separate from each other because we needed each and every person so much. And so to go from that super interconnected team with like a ton of, just people and, communication and all that stuff. Yeah, I was a little nervous, but what ended up happening when I switched was way more communication than I had expected. And it was great. Like we have videos all the time. We have Slack all the time. Everyone is very encouraged to just be available. That's one of like our core values. So, there's really never a time, like, not that everyone has to like respond like in a minute or, it's questioned. Like there's a lot of trust, but there's definitely an expectation that like, if I need something, I know that like another team member is going to be able to get back to me fairly quickly. And so like, I really don't feel like I've lost any of the quickness, or like if it needs to be fast paced, like everyone's still communicative and there's still like a lot of relationship. And I think for me, what seems like the biggest thing is, I think, the trust factor and the constant communication. And so, yeah, it was surprising and pleasantly so.
And I think in a lot of cases in our kind of remote worlds, and we make time to do what we need to for our families, but I think we're able to be more available for each other because we're not locked in a glass conference room somewhere. We're not traveling on the road somewhere between meetings. We're not in the middle of our commute. We haven't checked out for the day. There's just a lot in the mentality of remote work that allows you to just be more available. Being available is a really good way of summing up those core values that we have. That's good. Thank you, Bevan. Julie, you're our first official hire at Abenity back in 2009. You've been with us the longest. It means you've seen the most. What's caused you to stick with us through the ups and downs?
It's really the answer for any relationship is it's trust and communication. And that's whether it's a personal relationship or it's a working relationship. And especially in remote culture, that's important. And Travis touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but one of the big things I think that takes intentionality is just because you don't have that face-to-face all the time, just making sure that, when you're communicating over Slack and, whether it's through that or Asana, it's just adding that personal touch. And I know like it's easy to just, send out a message and say, hey, I need this or that. But to make sure that you keep it friendly and make sure, sometimes I've experienced that where it's like you feel a little bit like, hold on a second, and you realize, well, maybe we just haven't had that personal connection for a little bit with someone. And so just taking that extra time, or even if it's just any sort of tension you might feel. And a lot of times I think that just comes from, hey, maybe I just haven't communicated with this person on a more personal level in a week or two. And just so taking a minute to say, hey, how are you? Or, and I love that, we do so many things like that as a group on Slack, but it's also good to do that individually with different team members and build that personal relationship that's easy to lose if you're not intentional about it. So I think Abenity does a great job fostering that and encouraging that. And then of course, trust is so important that we know, again, people are available and, I feel like leadership really trusts that we're doing the job and we're given the freedom to be able to do that. And that's really important to me to have that autonomy and to be able to feel like I can, do the job that's given to me in the way that I feel like is the most productive and the best, having that flexibility to jump out and handle a family situation, but then be available for the team maybe later in the day, which you wouldn't be able to do if you were trapped in an office. I love working remote. It's a huge blessing to my family, being a military family, being able to have a career. That's unheard of. I think a key to just walking through any sort of long-term relationships and the things you experience is honesty and transparency and humility. Anytime you walk through a challenge, the Abenity leadership especially is just always very open and honest and has always shown a lot of humility in any situation. And I feel like that from the top to the bottom. So it just makes it really easy to have a relationship on both a work and a personal level.
Wow, that great answer. Thank you. So Missy, you came from a big role at a Fortune 500 company doing sales before you joined Abenity. How would you say over the last 9 years that Abenity has impacted your life?
It might be easier to talk about what hasn't been impacted. My past sales roles, I enjoyed them. I've always loved doing sales, but in past job roles, I've always felt more like a number rather than a person. My worth was judged by where I was to hit my quota each month, right, kind of thing. And we weren't really encouraged. I've never been encouraged to be there for the rest of my team, right? In any way that I need to be. It was more like, no, you have to focus on your number. And it was almost as if I was up against competition that sat at the desk beside me, right? Because you're always just competing against everybody else. And that is so different here. I was actually on multiple anxiety medications. I had a hard time managing my anxiety back then. And coming over here to Abenity, I'm not on that anymore. I feel very much supported. I feel like I'm valued in multiple ways. And everybody else has pretty much said it as well, but the encouragement to be a part of the team, not just to be on a team. There's a difference there, right? Here at Abenity, I don't have to do that. I can have integrity. I can have those conversations. I have cried with clients and partners on the phone. I've prayed with them. You just don't get that anywhere else. And I'm just really thankful for Abenity and bringing that out in me.
Oh, I just feel so much right now. I just feel really proud. I like to say we're all in the people business, When we're in our last days, we're not going to be thinking about work. We're going to be thinking about people. We're going to be thinking about relationships. And so none of this really matters if it's not driving that. So that's just seeing that in you, Missy. That's so cool. Nick, I got you next. So in the ups and downs of life, you have found yourself as a full-time single parent. How has Abenity's remote culture impacted your ability to do your work?
Oh, I'm home a lot. The main thing for me that I've realized when I think about it all is that being able, it's not even just necessarily, it's enabled by remote work, but what it's about is that setting your own schedule is the ultimate way to get the most things done in a day, like 100%. You can be there for school pickups, or now I'm there for when Zoom calls start. You're there, you can be there for when they have like parties and stuff at school. You can fit in around meetings and all the work you have to do during the day. And we've just always had an understanding, on the dev team, because we all have little kids, that, when you need to go pick up your kid, just shoot them and say, hey, I'm going to be gone for 10 minutes to get them. And we love it when a kid interrupts a call and comes in and climbs on you, or like one of our devs has a little baby, his little baby's always on his arm. Like, we welcome that. That's not a thing to be ashamed of or hide or try to shut down and get quiet. We like to see it. It's fun. Family is fun. It's good. And we just trust that you're still getting everything done. We all operate on different schedules, and we just have a trust of like setting it, making sure we have our overlap times. And we just, you take care of life, you take care of work. I'm such a ritualistic person. I make coffee at the same time every day. When I make my coffee, I do the dishes while my water's boiling, or I switch the laundry, or it's all those things working together, and not having to commute also instantly opens up more time in your day. That's been the other big thing. So I have time to exercise every day. I have extra time to do morning prayer. And it was hard to do that stuff when you had to like drive an hour to work and drive an hour back. So really, those are the two main things for me that have made such a difference. It's just that extra time that opened up and being able to set the rhythms of my day to do all the things I need to do at work, but all the things I need to do at home.
I love that. All right, Nadia, you're up next. Your family and your extended family got hit with some pretty significant health scares multiple times in a row that lasted over a year. How did our remote culture impact you during that dark time?
I feel like it's a two-part question. So first, how did I feel when I first got into a team? Yes, this was very different. It was quite an adjustment. At first, I couldn't even, like, for certain things, I couldn't believe it. I wasn't sure if I did things right. I remember first time I had one-on-one with Jeff, and I was supposed to meet him, and I thought we will be talking about all these different professional credentials and the goals of the company. And we talked about me and my kids, who plays piano and everything. Just everything about life, me, what I believe in, what is my philosophical views. So then I remember calling Brian and saying, I don't know if I did this right. Maybe I hijacked the conversation talking about something irrelevant when we were supposed to talk about something important. And Brian told me, no, that's actually what we do. I was like, wow, this is completely new to me. I appreciated it so much. And I remember Sandra actually as one of the first people that I met on a team. And just even her Slack messages, where everything you do, she says, oh, that's beautiful, or you're appreciated, you're loved. It's unbelievable. I never had that before. It just instantly makes you feel welcome. It makes you comfortable asking questions. It makes you comfortable sharing things. Even if you don't know something, you feel like it will be okay. And that encourages you to work even harder. And then I remember one team huddle where I think it was Missy who was going through something difficult, and I was going through difficult things at the same time. My sister did. And Brian just encouraged everybody to share their difficulties. It probably was an hour, maybe hour and a half meeting for the whole company where we all got to share. And it was very difficult for me to open up at first, just because when you don't have this, when you have never experienced that, it's a little difficult. But hearing other people sharing their life, it made me comfortable to share too. And I felt so much better after that huddle. It was amazing.
It's made an impact on all of us. We're just really grateful that you included us in that process. Thanks for sharing that. Ben, what do you think makes this remote culture work?
Yeah, having come from running my own company for a few years, and then more immediately right before Abenity, having worked for a major tech company in hyper growth mode. I mean, they're adding, in the 11 months I was there, they probably added about 2,000 employees, doubling in size in that time. What's so unique about Abenity is the trust that each person has for one another, the ability and willingness to give each other the benefit of the doubt. We know that we can't do this alone. We don't, we have the humility to know we can't do this without each other. Every team member has a sense of ownership and responsibility for the end result, because what we do day to day goes beyond just serving our clients and just serving our members and our merchants. In the giving back that we do through World Vision, we have a goal that's beyond the company itself that we're all working towards. And so because of that, again, that creates that ownership, that creates that sense of responsibility, that if you see something that is technically maybe outside of your job description, or that someone in another company might just kind of let this area that needs some work go by and say, hey, that's not my job. That's like, we all feel responsible to make the whole company better. I think as well, the shared purpose creates a community of people with shared values, and that's what facilitates the trust.
And shared values doesn't necessarily mean shared faith. I mean, we're all kind of in different places in our, as Nadia said, our kind of philosophical, spiritual view of things. And we live that out together, and it's a journey together. Sandra, thanks for joining us. You said you just came from the hospital, is that right?
That's true.
Currently, you're going through a really difficult time. Your husband has a cancer diagnosis. Can you just kind of share with us how you felt love from our team, where you've probably never met in person 90% of the people?
110% it can, because just the mention, we've got this diagnosis. The next thing I know, we're having packages delivered, things that we wouldn't have even thought that we needed, that have made him more comfortable in treatment. For instance, we didn't even think of having a patch over the eyes so that he could rest during chemo. And we're talking about 8 to 10 hours a day. And I remember the first chemo, we didn't do anything, but we got home at dark and we were so exhausted. And there's a man standing there and there's Christmas lights on our house. And I'm like, who are you? And he pulls down his mask because he was being considerate, with COVID. And he pulled down his, I said, Sam? He said, that is I. I said, what are you doing at my home? How did you find my home, for one? And there is not one person on this team that I don't call family. I lost my family when I first started here. Amy, every year, my mom's birthday, it's one of the hardest because she was murdered by my dad. In Cuba, she was sending me all these beautiful ocean visions just to try to get my mind off of it. And every year there's someone that remembers that anniversary date. And I was such a scared person when I met Brian. And if not for Mark and Brian creating this company, I would not have grown. I was terrified. I'd been betrayed. I was scared. And I thought a virtual company is a great place where I can hide. But I didn't. Brian kept saying over and over, you are safe. You are safe. You are safe. And today I know that. And just today, Bevan Gregory, sitting here, she's like, how are y'all doing on food? I'm like, we haven't had time for lunch. It's an hour drive. We've got Wendy's on its way, thanks to her. And you can't tell me a virtual company cannot reach out and be physical to your heart, because it can. I thank you all from the bottom of my soul. I do.
I love you, Sandra.
I love you, babes. I do.
Wow. All right, I need a minute.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need a minute too, actually.
So you're going to make Jeff say something after that?
I was going to say, Jeff, you got to follow. Jeff, can you just close us out and talk about this experience we have in a fully remote culture?
Yeah, it's when you look at the tiles of everybody on the screen and what you guys have said, it's phenomenal. And to be able to share in your lives, and you guys, share in mine, is truly, I kind of marvel at that. Bevan at IBM, we had our desks all there were no cubicles. It was little pods of 4 desks that was open, and you could hear and see everybody. And at Sprint, there was cubicles everywhere in every building around Kansas City. You need something from somebody, you walk down the hall or you knock on the cubicle and you go, hey, what's this? And communication is pretty easy that way. On a remote culture, that's very different. But before I get into the remote culture, I want to hit just the culture side of things, because culture really starts with just the perspectives and the attitudes of the people that founded the organization or the owners of the organization. That's what kind of trickles down. You can create subcultures like at Sprint, we'd have our small groups or something like that. But the true culture of an organization is set first by those that started the culture in the first place, or the organization in the first place. The remote is the venue. In person is just the venue, but the heart that makes the culture is what's inside of us and how we view one another, that will ooze out. It will make its way out through the cracks and crannies and find its way to lavish itself on each other. So there's this aspect of, hey, we do have a job to do at Abenity, and at the same time, we all have lives, and we are operating in that life. And so how do we balance that? Boy, Sandra's going through the really, really tough time, or Nadia, when we were praying for you and Nick, and each one of us, I could go around the circle, and there's real life that happens to every one of us. So how do we share in that real life, but also we've got gifts and abilities and talents that can be used by Abenity right now. The more you bring out my strengths, the better Abenity is going to do. The more I bring out your strengths, the better Abenity is going to do.
That's good. Wow. Guys, I got a ton out of this. One thing that I've really thought about for a really long time is work should allow us to have stronger relationships in our life. Why do you think it's so important that we prioritize space, margin in each other's personal lives amidst the requirements of our work?
Understanding the people that you're working with is on a personal level is important, which I've worked with people that I was 2 cubes over from, and we always had communication issues, right? And I feel like because we are able to lean in on such a personal level and like talk about what's going on in our life or what has gone in our life that we're still struggling with, that makes just a holistically stronger relationship. Without knowing people personally, it's really hard to communicate with them. It's hard to be patient with people if you don't really understand, right? Like sometimes I know I've worked with people in the past and they've had personal things going on and I didn't know about it and I took it the wrong way, but we didn't have that personal loving environment like we do at Abenity. So I would just kind of blow it off and be like, well, whatever. But here it's definitely, it's almost like, well, you know so much personally about this person, you don't even take offense to it. You just figure something's going on. So instead of asking them, hey, where is this that I need? You're more like, hey, are you okay? Like, is everything okay?
And for me, it's like if you invest in other people's personal lives and make sure that they're healthy and want to work, that's one of the first things I tell every person when they're hired is we are here for you and no one is here against you. We want to be sure that you succeed.
For me, really there's many answers, but one that jumps out is just the joy of it. So when you work on a development team with a lot of introspective, people with kind of some niche interests that a lot of other people may not appreciate. You find that you have this group, this subculture of common interests, things that you can kind of geek out over, and just enjoy it together while you work. Enjoy your work and enjoy talking about the things that you like outside of work. And that's relatively simple, but you only get that payoff when you open up and you share those things that you enjoy outside of the task at hand.
We start with knowing people first. The good, the bad, like Missy said, the way they prefer to work or communicate or what's going on in their lives. And there's safety and security that builds the trust for communication, for working through hard, stressful times together. That piece enables the work to happen. It doesn't prohibit it from happening.
We all have to carry our own burdens. Okay, you're not gonna come pay my bills for me, or you shouldn't if I'm fully capable of doing that. So that again is where some of that balance comes in. But when there are sometimes when life just throws a boulder on us, and it's like, it is too much for anyone to handle. That's the burden. When it's like, I'm buckling, guys, my knees are buckling. It is a joy, Mark said, a privilege. It's also the way to do it. We rally to that need. But on any team, on any sports team, you have different positions. And every position has their function. It's just like a company. To the extent that we bear one another's burdens and help each other heal and help each other be healthy and help each other be the absolute best at our position that we can be, the team is now that much stronger to follow the objectives that are going to get us down the path as well. It just makes sense that the stronger you are, then the stronger we are going to be, because we're linked arms together and trying to push this thing toward a common goal.
And I think that's a perfect way to sum it up, is the body has to be healthy in all its parts, and our personal lives and our professional lives cannot be separated from our body. It's a part of who we are. And so we need to be healthy in all those areas, which means we need to be prioritizing our personal lives over our work in some cases, which is not an excuse for not getting our work done. We're still accountable for that, but we work together to get it done and meet each other where we are. I love it. Well, thank you guys for taking this time to kind of dig into remote culture, to process who we are, to celebrate some of our victories in the past, and really just support each other in those difficult times. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Hey, I just want to say, I love the fact that every single person, everybody uses the word trust. Like, that's huge, right? Like, have you ever worked anywhere where you trust 100% of your teammates? Probably not. It's pretty amazing.
For more topics like this one, check out brianroland.com.